Please welcome our panelists. Sarah Woodhatch, Before Midnight. Rachel Winter, Dallas Buyers Club. Gabby Tana, Philomena. Lauren McMullen, Get a Horse. Dee Dee Gardner, 12 Years a Slave. Christine Belson, The Croods. And the most amazing moderator, Madeline Hammond. She's the president of Madeline Hammond and Associates.
Welcome. Wow, great crowd. I'm so excited. For those of you that have been with me from the beginning, 5 or 6 years, this is great. I love it. All right, because it started off and it wasn't full. I don't know why that was, but we've come a long way. All right, so let's get into it because we don't have a lot of time, and as you can tell, I'm a bit of an overachiever, so I have a lot of questions. So I even organized them this morning by person, and then I have my general questions, and then I was like, okay, I stopped at color coding, but that was it. All right, so not only do we have some amazing women producers, and we have one director, but everybody kind of has like a little nomination thing going on. So we have Christine, to my immediate left, nominated for The Croods, Dee Dee for 12 years, Gabby, say hi, Gabby. Gabby for Philomena, and also costume design for Invisible Woman, another film she's involved with. Rachel for Dallas Buyers Club. Sarah for Before Midnight, that's getting an adapted screenplay nomination. And then Lauren for this fantastic short called Get a Horse. Everybody seen Get a Horse? If not, check it out. It's nice. So the reason I wanted to run through that quickly is because it's a crazy road, this crazy Oscar road that we're on. And so I just wanted to before we get into how we kind of got into the business I want to just ask, and I'll start with Dee Dee. Do you read I know, we're starting with Dee Dee just because. Do you read the blogs? Do you read the reviews? Do you see who's up? Are these award shows are just like, oh my God, like what? Just tell us from your gut. Do you envelop this whole award season, or is it something that is just part of the road?
Thanks, Madeline. I think this whole chapter, when a movie gets received well critically and commercially, it's just all icing, it feels like so fortunate, and God knows I've been involved with a lot of movies that haven't, so it just feels lucky. When a movie first goes out into the world, I get a sense of what the reviews are, and there's certain reviewers who I follow, and I'm curious what they have to say, because I've read thoughtful, analyses of them before. Once you get into the prognostication and the odds and the stuff like that, I think get really far away from that.
Yeah.
I just think it doesn't have any bearing on why you made the movie, and it isn't really going to, I don't think, be the reason someone is moved by the film, and so it feels like a bit of a rabbit hole.
Yeah, I get it. No, I was just asking, I was curious because as I was reading all of your credits, and everybody here is so accomplished and has done so many amazing films, and this has just been an incredible year for film in general. And so the idea that we have like everyone here with a nomination or a nomination adjacent, it's pretty damn good. So just wanted to congratulate each of you for that. And then, by the way, anybody else? I think, let me just, before we go into the next question, ask you, Rachel, what you're feeling about this whole crazy awards, because this is all new for you, right?
It is. It's new. It's so exciting. It's surreal. I think there's a part of me that thinks I'm going to wake up and I'm in the 80s in the valley with really bad big hair, and that none of this is actually happening. So I could not be more excited or more grateful.
That's good. I like that. Well, you can do the big hair on the award show if you want. You can bring it all back.
It's not ugly, hopefully.
And speaking of those 80s and that big hair, let's just talk for a quick second, because I think it's always interesting about where we all come from and sort of who gave us the first break. So, Sarah, I'm going to ask you, what was the person that either gave you that first break or something along the way that inspired you to get into the business?
Yeah, my first break was just between college and school and college, and I just knew, and I spoke to someone actually in United International Pictures as it was then, and I just knew, and they just took a chance and gave me a summer placement, and I just knew I was in the right place. I just felt this is what I want to be in this industry. So it was fantastic.
That's good, I like it. Okay, what about you? Rachel, we'll just go down the line quickly.
Same time frame for me. I was finishing up college at UC Santa Barbara. And I was going to graduate a little bit early, and I didn't know what to do. And something inspired me to go to Paul Lazarus, who was the head of the film department, and ask him. And I told him that I had an opportunity for an internship with a producer 2 days a week in LA. Would you give me 4 units and a grade? And he said, sure. I just need the name and number. So I rode my bike back to the apartment, called my mom, and said, do we know anybody in the film business? And she said, yes, but he does pornography. And I said, I don't care, give me his number. And I called him up, and I had an internship at a softcore porn company doing development. There is development, actually.
There is development, huh?
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Formula.
Now, follow that one, Gabby.
Sorry.
I know, tough. Sorry. Well, actually, my first job when I was about 15 was I was living in England at that time, because that's where my family was living, and I had a job working in a cinema that did late night movie, double features. And I got to see an amazing, it was sort of the beginning of my film history education in a big way. And I'd say that was, from then on in, I knew that I wanted to make movies. And then the next job was actually being a PA on a movie, and it sort of it went from there on.
And Lauren?
MTV gave me my first break, speaking of bad hair. MTV was a big initial supporter of animation. They did a lot of idents and stuff, and they had a storyboard contest for world problems, world solutions. You had to come up with, address a world problem in 30 seconds. And I won out of about 8,000 entrants, and 10 of us got to actually make the short. And it is actually somewhat like Get a Horse, in a way. It's very, the problem that I identified was pollution, and I think the answer was getting out of your car, because that's about all I could do. And there was a cow in it, and a horse, so.
Well, very prescient. Dee Dee?
It feels like a long line of breaks, actually. Maybe Robin Standifer, who was a production designer on a movie called Mac that John Turturro directed. And I said, I want to do locations. And she said, well, have you ever done that? And I said, no, but I can drive and I can take pictures, and I have a roll of quarters for the phone. Yes, I'm that old. And then I fell in love with making movies.
Wow. I think learning locations is a great background, by the way, because it gets your eye attuned to certain things. I imagine now you're probably involved in locations now, on any film you do.
Yeah, it matters where you shoot them.
Sure does. Well, okay, what about you, Christine?
I was just first remembering working locations. I love it because they would give you money and go around and get all these
And a
people to
beeper.
be okay
Right.
with the fact that you're shooting. You just knock on doors and be like, take this $100 and don't report us, okay?
Don't turn on your air conditioning unit.
Exactly. Let's see. My first real job was in the movie industry. I got a job reading at Creative Artists Agency, which was great exposure because all you did was read scripts all day long. So that was very helpful. And the first person to give me a development job was Wendy Feinerman, who I remain very grateful to. And she was working on Forrest Gump. We were developing Forrest Gump. So I was like, this is great. I thought all movies were going to be, as good as Forrest Gump. That wasn't true. But I'd have to say the most important mentor for me is a woman named Amy Pascal, who we were talking about earlier, who hired me to be one of her creative executives. And she just taught me everything about story and loving writers and how to talk to people passionately and how to not be afraid and get things done. So I owe a lot to Amy.
That's good. And I think it's good too, you had a woman mentor also. I think that's
It was
important as well.
fantastic,
That's
yeah.
cool. So let's talk about producers in general. So being a producer, in the good old days, not that long ago, it was really about getting money, making sure your film or project came in on time. And now it seems like producers have to wear many, many, many hats. So they have to know a little bit about marketing, advertising, social media, locations, as we talked about, even film festivals and distribution. So the question that I have, and I want to start with you, Gabby, is as a producer, And as you see your role changing over the last year or so, how do you learn all this? Do you learn it, do you have a network of friends? Are you just actively involved in it, or are you learning it by doing it?
I think it's experience. I mean, I think you learn it by doing it. I think that's the only way to really learn anything properly.
Yeah.
Things are changing. I'm not so good on the social media aspect of it all. I think so I guess that's the answer, really.
Just doing it.
Just doing it.
And then, Dee Dee, what about festivals? Because that's very much a part of a film success many times. And so I know you launched Tree of Life at Cannes, and then this year I think Telluride was your first one for 12 years. So how involved are you in the marketing, the distribution, the everything, all the aspects, in addition to the budgets?
Very. I mean, you watch that like a hawk, and you hopefully have partners that allow you to be really participatory. I love that part of it. I don't pretend to know what I'm doing, but I certainly absorb it all and make suggestions. Festivals can be amazing. I mean, one of the great things about them is they're often attended by people who love movies, so you're in good company.
Yeah.
But that can be a bit of a bubble, too, because I've certainly had movies premiere at festivals and then get seen by nobody, really, ever. So you have to just kind of, I don't know, take it with a grain of salt and hope that it might be the launching pad that you intend it to be, and maybe it will be and maybe it won't be. But enjoy that moment, because you're not often in a small town with lots of people who love movies.
Yeah, it's the best audience you can get for that one time. Sarah, what about you? How do you learn all the different things? Many hats for a producer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky because of my background. I came come from studio to independent, so I went all the way through. I went sort of development, pre-production, production, and I'm kind of used to that catch-all role of a producer, going all the way through. And especially with independent film, it's essential to work and make suggestions and understand how you can help and assist and support the process all the way through. And I love the marketing of it as well, the messaging, and I love social media. Sorry.
No, I think it's
I love you for loving it.
Exactly. And it's really interesting, and with great distributors as well, when you sort of say, look, hey guys, we can do this, and it's free. They're like, excellent. So it becomes a nice collaborative process.
Well, it's free and it can work.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing.
Definitely reaches people in a different way.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Christine, you came from a studio background too, so you have a little Turner, a Fox, a little
Yeah,
Columbia.
it was, I have to say, it was invaluable, first of all, working at a big agency like Creative Artists Agency, and then working at a studio. If you are going to be selling movies to studios and making movies with studios, it's really helpful to have worked inside one and understand what motivates their choices. I'm just hearing everybody basically say that we're learning all the time, which is true for me. I mean, I switched from live action to animation about 8 years ago, and that was a huge learning curve, but I'm amazed by how every week I'm learning new stuff, and I'm always the annoying person in the room who's like, no, I don't understand that. Can somebody explain that to me? It's shocking to me. I feel like I'm learning as much as I did in my 20s, and I did not expect that.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to what Gabby said. It's really, you just get thrown into it, and you just have to learn it as you do it.
Yeah.
And in fact, whenever you learn it, it's going to change tomorrow, particularly on the social media front. So
that's why I decided not to learn about
it's
that.
good. Just, you know what? That's my take. It's good. So Rachel, I got to talk to you for just a second about Dallas Buyers Club, because we love it. But it seems to me like that movie was like destined to be made. So I know many of us, if we've been reading and we love movies like I'm sure many of us do, we heard the story about Matthew losing the weight and about how the money kind of went away 4 weeks before shooting. But what I'm curious about is about you and how you kept yourself together during that time and what it was like that very first day of shooting when you're like, oh my God, it is happening. Just share with us, if you can, that first day of shooting and what it was when it finally happened.
Well, I don't know where you heard that I kept myself together, but that's great. By the time people know it was a 20-year journey to get this movie made, and when all was said and done, we had 25 days and no lights and under $5 million to make the movie. And I think I was standing there a little bit like I'm sitting here today, like, wow, I cannot believe this is happening. And really blown away, really humbled, and knowing that everything so many people had done to get to that point, that I really couldn't exhale, and I sort of have been holding my breath the whole time, because everybody worked so hard for so little and for so long, and knowing that I would just continue to do whatever I could to honor what Craig and Melissa, who wrote the script, Robbie Brenner, who'd been with it for so long, Matthew, Jared, Jennifer, everyone who brought everything, Jean-Marc Vallée, our director, and it felt like the battle was just still going, and it was uphill, but it was absolutely amazing, and you just sort of sink into the moments of the movie magic that I think we all love and why we all do it.
Yep. Lauren? This is cool. I have to brag about you because it's amazing. You're the very first woman to solely direct a Disney animated film, short length or feature length. That's pretty cool, right?
Yes, Jennifer Lee is also the first, with Chris Buck, the first co-director of a feature.
You're the first sole one. So so tell us a little bit about that first pitch meeting when you were at Disney, and along the way, were you like, what the hell am I doing? Or did you just were you just going forward?
I didn't really feel the full weight and measure of the Disney thing until I was with my brother and sister-in-law and their two small children on a Disney cruise. That really brought it home to me, somehow. But, and they were like, everyone was like, look, it's Mickey. And he looked like Michael Jackson from behind with like white gloves and handlers and I don't know.
And it was then that you thought...
It was way after the short was made.
I see.
But it came about, I hadn't been there that long. Pretty sure John Lasseter did not know who I was. They had been looking for some ideas for their classic characters, and nothing, not theatrically. And I got sort of thrown into this ever smaller pool of people who had ideas. And I had one idea, I had one image, and it was, what if we'd made it a lost short, and then we pull it out into the theater? Because I'm a huge fan of Purple Rose of Cairo. And to get to work with the actual 2D animators at Disney for me was like this unbelievable dream, because I never would have been hired to do it. So I guess John Lasseter was in the room, and Ed Catmull, and Ed Catmull had to leave early, and he walked out of the room pointing, and so I could just see his disappearing pointing arm, and he said, "Make that short." And so it was basically greenlit in the room, which is ridiculous because I thought that never ever happened. And then of course afterwards they had to find out who I was. So
I don't think it does happen, by the way, in the room. So
right,
yeah, that was pretty lucky. So Sarah, I have to ask you. So before midnight, 20-year project. Every 9 years you go back and kind of pick up where it left off. But the audiences, myself included, are very vested in this couple. So I'm just wondering, I mean, when I saw the film, I was incredibly distraught. I get teared up now when I thought that they weren't going to make it. So how much pressure do you get from people, crazy people like me, that have to know what's happening with them because they think it's real?
Well, Before Midnight is a standalone movie, but obviously people are so invested in Jesse and Celine. And what is so interesting is that I think when those guys that made the Before Sunset movie, no one really wanted a sequel, so they weren't under a lot of pressure. This time, though, the full weight of these characters, that people have grown up with these characters, we did feel that, but I think those that Richard Linklater, Ethan and Julie together are such a mesmeric creative force, and I just felt as a producer that like if we had the recipe, and if we really kind of protected that recipe creatively, we wouldn't go wrong. We would make, and we very much made it the film that those guys wanted to make, and that was that was very important to me, that I supported that. Yeah, and then I think to a certain degree, that it was, people kept saying, are they together, in the run-up when people knew about it, but we were lucky because we were able to keep it quite quiet, the filming of it. So afterwards, when we announced it, we did that kind of, that Nike, just do it, we just done it.
Right.
We didn't announce the movie until we wrapped, which was nice.
That was actually smart, yeah.
Well,
you didn't get all that
and
input.
sort of necessary. We shot it very quick, we shot it quite quickly, so it was just, there were a lot of things going on. But yeah, it was really fantastic, that, and we felt a responsibility, but by the time anyone knew about it, it was done.
You're right. That's good. I like that. Dee Dee, I was reading somewhere that that you saw Steve McQueen's earlier film, Hunger, and you were blown away and contacted him. So I'm curious, how much time was there between when the material was there and you got Chiwetel involved? Was it a long time? Was it a relatively short time? Did all the pieces fall together, or was it a little bit of a struggle?
Well, we met Steve before Hunger premiered in Toronto, so that was 5 years ago. From when, and then he and John Ridley actually were working together before they found the book.
Mm-hmm. Steve's wife?
Correct. Yeah, Bianca found the book. Steve's wife found it, which sort of set them on their course. Once we had the script, and Steve got Michael and Brad and Chiwetel committed, at that point, we'd built what we hoped was somewhat undeniable, and it proved to be so. I mean, it's not to say it was simple, but we plotted it carefully and we made it, a year ago, so.
Yeah, it's still incredible how that all came together. Because I can't imagine anyone else besides Chiwetel and Lupita, and in fact, everybody, it seems like it was, in other words, another destined.
Well, that's the great fortune of a director's vision.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So, Christine, for you, for Croods, that was a long time in the making also. And I imagine that technology probably was your best friend on this film, because you were able to use some very new and exciting things. Is that the biggest change over the course of time for Croods?
I actually think the biggest change over the course of time was that we really found the story. What happened was we set off to make it with Kirk D'Amico and Chris Sanders, our two writer-directors, and we were just kind of getting off the ground and starting to crew up when Chris Sanders, who's much more experienced in animation than Kirk was a screenwriter for many, many years before coming to animation. Chris was tapped to go and direct another movie of ours called How to Train Your Dragon, which was in a little bit of trouble and needed a new director to come in and in very short order overhaul the movie. So Chris went off to do that, and in that time, Kirk, I probably should have backed up. The movie was always a buddy comedy about two cavemen going on a road trip together, and it was never a story about a family taking a journey together. And we kept bumping up against it, and we just couldn't unlock it. It wasn't lighting up. It wasn't turning into the movie we wanted it to be. And while Chris was away directing Dragon, Kirk was like, "It's Little Miss Sunshine. We're throwing everybody in the van and taking them across this prehistoric landscape." And that, honestly, that is the thing that really, really changed the movie. In terms of technology, the thing that excites me most about animation technology and where it's going is the animation itself and the ability to make those characters so expressive.
real,
That's
right.
changed dramatically in the last 10 years. I mean, you can see it. Stuff that used to impress us all so much, I think now looks a little wooden.
Right.
And you just get incredible facial performance. So that's what excites me.
And forget you're watching an animated film. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You just think you're watching just a great film.
Exactly.
That's right. So, Gabby, tell us about that. I imagine it was a rainy day in Cannes, because it rained all last Cannes. When you first heard that Philomena was sold, I know a lot of people were wanting to get it, so it was a great bidding war. So what was that like for you when you heard?
Well, it was pouring with rain.
Was it?
No, it was very exciting. I mean, it's exciting to be in a situation where you're sort of, the hot property. And I had other distributors who were very, very upset and actually sort of took me to the side afterward and said, "How did you let that happen? How could you let them have it?" So, so that was pretty funny. But yeah, no, it was great to be picked up, and for a price that already meant that we knew that we were going to be commercially viable. So it's pretty
Right.
amazing when early on in the game you already know that your production cost is covered, and that's sort of what making that sale did for us.
Right, and that's important. Well, that leads right into this next question, which is, it's tough sometimes, particularly for women sometimes, to find that voice, particularly when asking for money. And sometimes asking for money is the most difficult thing, or negotiating what you need to get done. So, Rachel, I'm going to start with you, because I know that this had to be a challenge for you guys, for your whole team along the way. And was it difficult for you? Is that something that you have to work hard to do to find that voice, find that strength, make sure no one leaves, turning that no into a yes?
I do not have a problem asking for money because I'm very lucky and I am able to only work on projects that I'm super passionate about. And I think being a producer is quite often being a salesperson. And if you love it, you can sell it. And I always feel very comfortable selling something that I believe in and I'm passionate about, because there's integrity in that. And I don't have any problem if people say no, like the 137 people that said no to Dallas Buyers Club, they say no.
Did you really count?
Oh yeah, a lot of people were counting.
Sarah, what about you? Was that hard for you to find that strength to get it all done?
For me personally, no, because I think I'm also things that I'm passionate about. I'm very lucky I only work on things I'm passionate about, exactly the same. And also I don't have time to be anything but straightforward and transparent. And I'm very lucky with that in other projects as well, because I say it how it is, and people really appreciate that. And I'm very upfront and direct. And also, don't chase the bid, because it's such a marriage, these things. I'm not looking for a one-night stand. I'm looking to get married. And so it has to be right for both people.
Right, that's right. One would hope.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be. Christine, talk to us about just your thought off the top of your head in terms of, since you got into the business, do you think it's easier, harder, same for women? Do you notice is those pitch meetings still hard? Getting the money is never easy, but you notice?
Statistically speaking, it doesn't seem like it has gotten much better for women. I feel that I've been lucky, and honestly, since I got to DreamWorks Animation, it's been about 8 years ago. I didn't go for this reason. I didn't even know it until I got there. But Jeffrey Katzenberg, who runs DreamWorks, is so attracted to powerful women. He just hires the CEOs are women, the producers are women,
right.
All the top people at the company are women. And so the first time we gathered the creative leadership of the company, I looked around, I was like, it's like all women. There's only 2 guys in this room, and that was extraordinary. And I applaud him for it. And we have 4 female directors working at DreamWorks Animation right now. So again, I'm incredibly indebted to Jeffrey for that. We all are. So I actually don't think it's gotten easier, but DreamWorks Animation is this little kind of oasis,
Right.
A little respite from that.
Yeah, and I think a lot is because of him.
Yeah.
I do. Have you noticed?
Sounds lovely.
It does
Honestly.
sound good, right?
Come over.
I know. Do you think, Lauren, do you think roles have changed? Well, let me ask both Christine and Lauren, and I'll start with you, go back to you, Christine. Stronger women characters in animation than it used to be.
Absolutely.
That's a big, huge change, right?
Yeah, that has absolutely changed. And we were very happy in The Croods to sort of show a girl who wasn't a princess. And I have to say, I love Frozen. I absolutely love it.
Me too.
But it was fun to do a girl who, had big thighs and was strong, and she's kind of dirty and scratched up and had crazy bad hair, and,
Right.
and she wasn't about that.
She wasn't a princess.
She was the opposite of a princess. And so that was fun for me.
Yeah,
And
I
Minnie-
worked in story on Wreck-It Ralph, and I did a lot of the scenes with Penelope,
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
like where they first meet, and it was such a pleasure to work on this character who has this voice, and the two aren't really complete unless they're around each other. Like Wreck-It Ralph is a little bit slowish and prone to depression, I think. And Penelope is this sort of live wire who's also can be snarky and mean. And what a combo of characters. I don't think, I'm not sure you could make that movie in a live action equivalent.
No, that's one of the best things. That's it. So Dee Dee, I want to talk about shooting for a little bit. So how was it in that hot and humid, I'm from the South, so I imagine that in New Orleans when you were shooting, even though it wasn't the longest shoot, would you consider it a tough shoot?
Well, it was hot.
Yeah. It was hot. And yours was 35 days?
35-day shoot.
35 days.
But we did that very deliberately. We had to get out of there by a certain date because of hurricane season and insurance. But we very much wanted to shoot in the summer because we felt like the heat was such a character and such a part of the story. And it's such a part of Solomon's book. And so we just signed on for you know, we knew what we were getting into, and frankly, it felt a little bit wrong-footed to complain, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
we still got to go under a tent and go home at night and, like, go, I just, you know what I mean? Like, everything
Be free.
shifts because you actually are alive and free, and so it just shuts you up real fast.
Right, it's true. Yeah, because if you're the whiny one complaining that you're hot,
Well, you're
like,
then
really?
you can go home.
Yeah,
you know?
that's right. That's true. But 35-day shoot, and then Rachel, yours was even less than that. Yours was like 20-something days, right? Yours
Yeah,
was
25.
25 days. So, and how that shoot was like, I know you said no money, no camera. I imagine not a big craft service. Well, then no one was eating anyway on your film. So, right? So you really didn't need anything, maybe crackers.
Yeah, you would sort of consciously just decide to pass by that craft service table. You just sort of felt bad. Well, let's not rub it in their faces, so.
Were you there most of it? You were probably there a good part of it?
I was there the whole time, and then, so that was 5 weeks of shooting, and then about 5 weeks before that, so I was in New Orleans for 9 weeks, and I would go home on the weekends to see my kids.
Ooh. And Sarah, you had it made. You were in Greece, right? That had to be great. But didn't you feel good, too, about helping the economy and just employing people and, you know?
I have to say, it was our crew was 95% Greek. And I have to, those guys, I mean, whilst the economic story is obviously incredibly important coming out of Greece, the fact that these amazing people are making films there, and they are so proud to have another story, like a different story, showing, you know, it's a beautiful, beautiful landscape, and they were epic and awesome. And our aim was to give Rick the best experience outside Austin, and yeah,
Which is hard to beat.
yeah, he was, you know, it was amazing, and just the kind of passion, you know, it's really tough there, but we were in Messenia, which is just beautiful, that whole area, and so it was also like an idyll. So yeah, that wasn't too tough, but it was the summer and it was hot. It was just wonderful.
Yeah. I think you hit the jackpot on that one. So Christine, I got to ask you, so on cruise, like that's a long time you're shooting with these same people, and I would assume it's almost like a second family.
Absolutely.
Is it tough that last day when you're saying goodbye, or is it like school where it's like, see you on the next one?
No, you know, honestly, it would have been so heartbreaking if you did have to say goodbye after 4.5 years together. But the thing that's really unique about DreamWorks Animation to any place that I've worked at, it's like actually an old studio system where we're all contract players and we go from one movie to the next. So even our production designer, actually the truth is we're doing a sequel, so a lot of us are getting back together again. But even if that wasn't the case, our production designer and our head of lighting and our layout head, they're all still on the same campus as me, and we see each other, we bump into each other in hallways, we see each other in the cafeteria. It's a very collegiate campus. So actually, you don't have to deal with that, which is great, because it used to rip me up in live action. I couldn't stand it when the shoot was over. I found it really difficult. So.
And I don't really think, I mean, Rachel, you tell me, I don't think it matters if it's 23 days or longer. During that time, it's all out there. They are your team, right?
Absolutely, and I think you just want to do whatever you can to support them, no matter how much money you have, how much time, you just want to give your cast and your crew everything that you can so that they feel like they can do their best work, especially when there's not a lot of time or money. They feel challenged because they want to prove to the director and honor the script, and it's hard, and they struggle, and all you can do is really support them, listen to them, and help them, in the absence of resources, help them do their best work.
Yeah. Hey, Lauren, I want to ask you what your feeling is about intuition. I think intuition and following our gut.
I didn't expect that.
That's a new one, huh?
Your intuition didn't
Your intuition didn't tell you. Have you relied on intuition? I think it's one of the most powerful things, particularly as women, that we have, is our gut. Have you had an experience where you followed it or maybe didn't?
That's a really interesting question. I did look up my horoscope after that pitch meeting, and it did say something good would happen. So I think maybe it's not so much intuition as thinking about an idea that comes in a very soft way at first, that you might think it's an intuition. You have a gut feeling of like, I love this, why do I like it? and that you can extrapolate from there into it being an idea. And then, as a woman, generally you need to check with yourself a lot before you tell anyone else. That's how I work. And then I'll ask a few people, hey, I have this idea for this Mickey theatrical thing. What do you think about this? And a lot of times people would not be able to visualize it in their head, but people would be like, that's pretty interesting. So it was, and then it was sort of this ricocheting effect of, what if it does start as a lost short? And then where do you go? Okay, you pull it out into the theater, and then the ramifications of that were many. It turned out to be one long shot, and it had to be animated twice in 2D and CG at the same time. And we had a very small crew, and everyone kind of did each other's jobs. I got to animate on it. People rigged models and stuff. And then in terms of the thinking, it became, okay, once they're out there, what's the most interesting stuff that could happen? And so I'd had the idea of them being able to flip the screen to win over Pete. And, you could flip back to different parts of the cartoon. So with the 3D, it gave you all of these crazy things that you could do that you couldn't do before, like have something in the theater. So it's a matter of pursuing something that you don't even know is an idea yet.
Right, you're just following it through.
Yes.
What about you? You ever trust your gut?
All the time. But it's sort of echoing a little bit what you're saying, like I'm constantly talking to my filmmakers about, like, my gut says this, and then I realize, well, I have to make them feel it, like I have to articulate it and express why. Sometimes I sort of have to reverse engineer the gut feeling and really discover what it's really about and why I feel that one choice is better than another, and actually be able to articulate it more specifically than, I just have this gut, guys, so everybody, let's totally change direction and do something completely different now because of my gut. But yeah, I do. A lot of times I'll wake up in the morning and be like, oh my God, that's it. Like, we have to completely change this. So,
yeah, why is it always in the morning?
I think
know,
it is.
It's that night.
It really is.
You process a lot while
That's
you're
right.
sleeping, I think.
I think so too. That's what they say. It all is going on in the morning. Always follow that. That's what they say. The yogis, they get up at like 4 o'clock and works for them. I don't know. Hey, Gabby, let's talk about support group for a minute. Do you have a close-knit group of friends? Do you have a particular person, like when you've got this, as we were talking about, crazy ideas or something that you've got to float off of someone? Who do you go to? Who's your go-to person to check in and be sure you're not like crazy? Or maybe you are.
I don't have one go-to person.
It depends on...
It depends on what it is. I have people that I love working with and that I collaborate well with. So I wouldn't say that there's one person.
And what about you, Dee Dee? Do you have a group of folks, or do you...
Well, I have great partners at my company
Yeah.
with whom I've worked for 10 years, so I rely on them a lot. And as funny as it sounds, I rely on my son.
Like a barometer? Like, do you think you would go to this?
I do. Because he's sort of, well, what are you doing? And he's only 9, bless him. And so I reduce it a bit, but I find in reducing it, I can sort of ask them really basic questions, and he comes up, well, have you thought of this? I'm like,
Right. That is great.
That's solid. Okay, thanks.
But it's true. It's simplifying it. I think maybe I could have his number. We could all call him and be like, honestly, you can't believe what happened today. He'll be like, really? I got to go. This is not even worth my time. But let me talk to you, a follow-up to that is, because you and Brad have been together, have you established this shorthand, if you will, so when you talk to him, you know where he's coming from, he knows where you're coming from, and how have you kept that going?
Yeah, I would say it's true of both Brad and Jeremy Kleiner, both my partners. We get into real specifics and detail about story, but what I find we do have shorthand for is getting to that conversation. Like, we can sort of leap far ahead in terms of why are we even having this conversation. He's a real cinephile, and he watches everything and believes in movies. He also believes in the shelf life of movies. He doesn't...
He's not all about the opening weekend?
No, I mean, he's a businessman too, so he recognizes the value of that, but he really fundamentally believes that movies last a long time, far longer than we do, frankly.
Oh, I see.
And that they get discovered over time, and that movies, some movies may not get seen when they first get released, and then find their feet somewhere because of something that changes, and the culture changes, and people, I don't know why, but I don't want to know why, actually, because then someone could solve it.
Right. That is sort of the magic of it.
Yeah.
And if we knew what it was, then we would try to emulate it, and then we would lose it.
And he reminded me several years ago, we had Assassination of Jesse James and Mighty Heart come out in the same year, neither of which anyone saw, but except Christine. But he said I couldn't be prouder, and I didn't find Days of Heaven or 2001 in the theater. I found them later on my couch, and so don't worry, and that's that's a blessing.
It's a good lesson. Yeah, it's not really all about that first 48 hours, or now 24 hours. Speaking of shorthand, Christine, what about you because you work with Jane?
Absolutely. My producing partner, Jane Hartwell, and I have been, since the day we met 5 years ago and started this, we spend, every waking hour together practically, and we bounce everything off of each other. And she's got a very different mind than me. She's much more analytical, so that's really helpful. And then again, I've talked about this community at DreamWorks Animation. There's a lot of other producers there that I've known a long time. A lot of live action expats have sort of gone over to animation, and so I bounce a lot of stuff off of them as well. So there's a lot of sounding boards there.
Rachel, your husband, Terry, is, I want to brag about him for a minute because I know him.
Oh,
and
go ahead.
I admire him a lot. He's been nominated himself for several Emmys, and I think he won one for The Sopranos, but he's also done Boardwalk Empire, and he's nominated for Wolf of Wall Street for adapted screenplay, right?
Yes.
So that's, let me see, is that against Sarah and Dee Dee? Right? Oh, that's awkward.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Why'd I ask that?
It is now.
All of a sudden, I'm thinking, wait a minute, adapted screenplay.
And that's us too. Yeah.
So, but talk to us about that, because you guys are collaborating on a couple projects. How is that? What are the pros and cons, maybe, of working with your spouse? And tell us a good story.
I think that it's amazing. The good is obviously it's just good to work with the best, and my husband is the best. I'm not biased at all, but he is, not just because he's so incredibly talented, but because he works harder and has more integrity than any person I've ever met in my life, which is, it's really a wonderful thing. But I feel bad for him because, I sleep next to this incredibly creative, amazing mind, and he has to listen to every dumb idea I have at every minute that I have them. But when one is good, it's like, and he says, no, I think there's something there. I'm like doing a victory lap. So it's great.
Just to suggest, you can call Dee Dee's son.
That's true.
You know what I
That's
mean?
true.
I'm just thinking.
I'm glad to know I now. Yeah, I now have a backup.
Vet
Send
those.
Terry my way. I'll pitch some good ideas.
This can totally work, Dee Dee. So this has been amazing to go through this experience with him at the same time. We're just super grateful, kind of in a perpetual state of pinching ourselves. But I'm thrilled for his success as well, because like I said, he's absolutely earned it, and that's great.
That's good. I like that. Gabby, I want to go back to Philomena for a minute. Can you tell us the first time you met the real Philomena Lee? And she's been sort of, I don't know, a secret weapon, if you will, during this season. But what was that like?
Well, the first time I met her, it was just after we'd optioned the book. Steve Coogan had already met with her, but I took her out to lunch with her daughter and with Jeff Pope, who ended up co-writing the screenplay with Steve. And Martin Sixsmith came along as well. It was very moving to meet her. I'd already, of course, read the book and knew a bunch about her story, and learned a lot more by spending time with her. And a lot of that lunch had to do with talking to her about what it meant to actually to embark on trying to make a film about her life, and make her feel comfortable with it and sort of trust what we were trying to do. Which is, only really, ultimately, that only is proven when it's done.
Yeah.
So it was the beginning of really a 2-year journey with her, and afterwards I wrote her a letter and stayed in touch with her, just enough in touch to just let her know that if she wanted to speak, I was there, and then just to be supportive of the creative process. And she spent a bit of time with Steve and Jeff, and then came actually and met Judy just before we started filming, and then came and visited the set about on 4 different occasions while we were making it. So she was sort of along on the journey, and meeting her that first time was remarkable. But I felt we immediately sort of had a kind of we got along. So afterwards, it was lovely to sort of continue the discourse.
I bet it was emotional for her watching Judi Dench act her in some of those scenes. It was emotional as a viewer. Can only imagine what it was like having lived it.
There was one day that we were all in tears.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then, Rachel, I just thought of this. You were able to get Ron Woodruff's recordings, but he died, I think, 4 months later after that. How fortunate did that all? That was amazing.
Yeah, that was amazing too. Craig Borton, who wrote this 22 years ago, and met with Ron and got those recordings, I think all the way across the board, that has a massive impact for Craig and Melissa, who wrote the script, Jean-Marc to direct the movie, and certainly Matthew, to be able to take those recordings, we could all listen to them, and then try to infuse Ron's spirit, his rhythms, his views on the world, good and bad, and marry that to the world created by the script and the direction and Matthew's stunning performance.
Yeah, that was very fortunate. Timing's everything, right? Hey, Lauren, I want to talk a little bit about your background, because you've got an extensive career in television, I think on some of the best shows on TV, The Simpsons, King of the Hill, Avatar, The Last Airbender, The Critic, a bunch of others. So what is it about animation that just draws you to it? And what is it about this craft where you can't get enough?
Animation's one of those fields where when you initially start to do it, you're gone. You're done. There's so many people at Disney who have started out like that, where it's like, this is what I want to do. I literally remember thinking, I love this animation, and I also love blackjack and betting on horses. So I think this is the career path for me. It was literally like, I could do this 12 hours a day for the rest of my life. And of course, it's generally 14, but that's
right.
Minor quibble.
It's good if it's 12. That's a good day.
It's pretty good.
That's an easy day. Yeah. So you just got hooked.
Yes, and then I sort of started in commercials and did that MTV thing, and then sort of made the transition to half-hour shows, because that was all I could wrap my head around, like a half hour. And then it got to, I was a sequence director in the Simpsons movie, and that was a little bit of like, oh, how do you make a feature thing? What's the story process like? And so when a bunch of ex-Simpsons directors, including Rich Moore and Jim Reardon, made the jump to first Pixar and then Disney, they were like, hey, come on.
Come over.
So literally about 6 ex-Simpsons directors worked on Wreck-It Ralph.
Wow. Because it's very cliquey, this whole animation group, very cliquey.
It's a small community.
You will work with everyone again.
Yeah. So Christine, you were lucky enough to work at the Jim Henson Company.
Yes.
So what was that? You must have had, talk about creative influences. That had to be, you were there during the golden years, I would assume.
You know what? I was actually there after Jim had passed away, so I'm assuming probably the golden years would have to be when he was actually there. But we had a really good time at that. Lisa Henson, his daughter, who is a really great film producer and a studio executive in her own right, sort of decided, like, I'm gonna get involved again directly in the family business, and came and was running the Henson Company, and working with her was really great. And honestly, making Muppet movies was the most fun I have ever had. It is a blast. The puppeteers are brilliant. It's silly and ridiculous and hard and really, really fun and memorable.
But like animation, you forget that they're Muppets. Because each have such distinctive characters and personalities.
Yeah, it's funny, when you shoot a Muppet movie, it's really weird. You have to build the stages way high because the puppeteers are, they're sticking up like this. And so you, as a producer, you're seeing the actual puppeteer all the time. So you're very connected to who the human being that's in there is. But yeah, when you're watching it on screen, it's real seamless. You just forget that there's no one in that sock.
No, that's right. Works for me. Sarah, what do you think about, do you think women, about women helping women and for the next generation. Do you make a point as a producer? Is it a conscious decision? Because as Christine said before, the statistics aren't the greatest, and it starts kind of with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless of, making generalizations makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, me too.
But I can tell you what was absolutely essential for me was mentoring. And I definitely make an effort to mentor people. And I think it's utterly essential, people that have gone to the path before you. And, it's that thing of find someone that, is doing what you want to do and see how they got there and see if you can. I'm a great believer, and I spend a lot of time, but male and female. I feel pretty lucky being based in London because we have some real titans there. The commissioning editor at BBC Film is a woman, the commissioning editor at Channel 4 is a woman, so Abby Morgan. There's a lot of powerhouses there, and it does, so it does feel, but I know the directing numbers are still really low, and I've talked to a lot of people about that as I say, generalizations are dangerous, but I think it sometimes comes down to, men just having a go and not worrying about not getting it right versus women being kind of perfectionist and it's really simple things, and just, having a valid voice is an important thing.
And also you, in addition to your work, your philanthropy is important to you as well.
Incredibly important.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, I spent it was amazing to me that I can actually use my contacts and my group to kind of do women breast cancer. I've raised a lot of money, and it's really pulling together a lot of people and raising money for causes that I believe in. And I spend a lot of time with that, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure, and I've come up around people like Richard Curtis, Comic Relief. They're fantastic. And getting a message out there with humor and lightness, and not kind of worthiness and heaviness, is a really important thing to me. That actually, going over heavy ground with a light touch. That's right. What we that's what we do in this business in a lot of different areas, and bringing that to philanthropic thing is really important to me.
Well, not that we have any extra time in our busy career lives, and I know that Lauren's answer would be blackjack, but Gabby and Dee Dee.
Ponies.
What do you do when you're not working? Do you have, Dee Dee, you got your son, but is there anything else?
And my daughter.
And your daughter. Is there, what else do you do? Do you have any special outside career interest? Mahjong, anybody? Can you have any? I'm still trying to put together a Mahjong game, and I have come up with no one.
Any takers on the path?
Gabby, do you have anything? What do you do when you're not working?
Well, I love to, when I can, to garden and to cook and to do things where you do them and you actually know something's going to come out of it. Because so much of what we do, you just sort of...
You just wait and wait and wait.
And you keep, so things that, so those sorts of things.
What about you, Christine?
I have 2 teenagers.
So no time.
Not a lot, but when we have free time, we hang out together, we have a good time. We watch a lot of movies together. It's kind of back to what Dee Dee's saying about the movies never die. We've been watching a lot of old movies, and it's so gratifying watching them again with my kids.
With them.
Yeah,
right.
That's a big pastime. I'm a big fan of sleeping. I like to do that as much as possible.
That's excellent. I like that. We all do. I'm going to take that up this year.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
Good.
Right? I'm doing that.
It's great.
That's good.
So true.
Gabby, getting back to you though and cooking, I find that interesting because Gabby's father is one of the most famous restaurateurs, Dan Tana. And so, and to that end, I'm curious about how you must look at fame differently than any of us, because famous people were probably just like, oh, there's Frank, I'm guessing, I don't know. But how was that growing up and being in that kind of world?
Exposed to it. I guess, it was, I guess, what can I say? It felt like normal, it's sort of an odd thing to say. I felt very respectful of people, actually, who were public, because I felt I was more maybe aware of how vulnerable they were. So if anything, I think it made me more respectful and more protective. It wasn't like I felt like, oh, this is my friend. It was actually kind of the opposite. It was like, this is somebody who is public, and that's a sacrifice, and they should actually, that you need to respect that.
Yeah, that's good. I wish more, too bad that no one else does that now, right? It's all an open book.
Yep.
Lauren, how were you, I want to go back to your short. How lucky were you that it was attached to Prince of Frozen?
Especially when you build a short that is literally has to take place in a theater to get the full effect. We couldn't be happier than to be attached to Frozen.
Right.
I mean,
What about you guys? You know Let It Go, Sarah?
Sorry?
You know that song, Let It Go?
Yes, I
Yeah.
have heard it. It's very, very catchy.
I know. I don't even want to say it because it's going to go over and over in my head. so I don't
That's why
wanna
I'm trying not to engage with it, because
I know.
otherwise it's going to be...
I know, don't engage. I know, me
Stay
too.
away from the song, stay away from the song.
I know, it's true. I don't know. It's something about that thing. I don't know, it's crazy. But it made me think of that because I thought you would probably had to watch it over and over and over. Now let's talk about the creative process a little bit because like Dee Dee, for example, you have done everything from World War Z to the private lives of Pippa Lee. So the work that you're attracted to kind of runs the gamut. But is there something, and I would like to ask each of you this, is there certain types of projects you are attracted to? It's hard to generalize, it might just be what comes your way, but is there sort of a something inside you that makes you resonate with something versus something else?
Absolutely, but I don't know that I could identify what it is.
It's like you know it when you read it?
Kind of. I think we spend a lot of time interested in trying to make things that haven't been done before, or tell stories that haven't been told. In the most general way, that's probably at the root of everything we've made. And I don't know, what appears to be schizophrenic to one person is actually elastic to another person. So I think it's a good thing. I don't want to keep making the same thing.
Yeah.
I just go by what charges me, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. What about you, Christine, same thing?
It's pretty eclectic, but for me, I think I'm always asking the question of like, what is that central relationship? It's like if there's not something between the two characters that engages and compels me, then it's not something I'm probably going to want to devote the amount of time that it takes to make an animated movie to. And whenever people come in and pitch me ideas at the earliest stage, it's the first question I ask. I'm like, tell me about that central relationship and what's going on between those two people.
Right.
So for me, it's about that.
Well, that's what they say. The biggest thing that defines a successful feature is, do you care about these people?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you don't, then forget it, right?
Yeah.
What about you, Lauren? Is there something that attracts you to something?
well, I work in animation, so
So same thing.
a lot of it is kind of, I'm not a big respecter of medium. I think it's really interesting because there's so many different things you can do with animation these days and live action, and they're all kind of becoming this sort of jumble. And like you said, there are lots of types of movies that you can make now that you couldn't before. It's kind of a Wild West time. But I really want to think about things in a way that doesn't have, that I'm never a respecter of obstacles.
Okay. Gabby?
It has to be something that captivates me. It's a story that moves me, themes that move me. I have to really care about it because I have to be prepared to spend a long time with it. So, it's going to have to be something I can talk about intelligently and with animation, not animate,
Right.
but with. I think that's it. And sometimes, you'll start with something and you'll go down the path, and then you realize actually that maybe, it wasn't as viable as you thought it was. So that happens too, and sometimes you have to let things go.
Right. But yeah, that's right. You can't get so attached to it. You got to let it go. Or, don't bring it up. But then also we can come back. I mean, I think, Rachel, if you had let it go, not saying that anymore. But for Dallas Buyers Club, I mean, you had a back burner that for a long time, and then it kept finding you again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I do gravitate to, I'm a real sucker for inspirational true stories. When I was younger, my dad, who's actually here, we were watching the movie Rudy in a movie theater, and both were bawling our eyes out. And I realized that for me, that's sort of a theme, no pun intended,
Right.
but I do respond to that. The movies with central characters who make you ask the question, like, well, what would I do if that were me? What am I made of? And I'm fascinated by those characters.
Yeah, I think that's cool. Sarah?
Yeah, I'd circle back to something that you were saying earlier about intuition. is that I know, if something is authentic and resonates with me, I have quite a broad slate and, spectrum of work, and it is something that resonates. And also, like Gabby was saying, that, sometimes I'll go along and it won't be as it seems and I'll move off. But that is the kind of first thing, that something's authentic, like it feels true. There's something that's the gut, the intuition. I want to know about that, and follow that path.
Right. Or you can't forget it, or you're like, okay, I can't have it. But then it keeps coming back to you and you wonder how it is.
Yeah, intuition also, it works in conjunction with like things that line up together. That's the other thing that, there's coincidences or whatever you call it, but actually just things keep coming around. You're like, what is that? What is that keeps coming around that project? That's something that I really notice and look out for.
At one point, I was going on like my 10th year trying to get a movie made about an American baseball player living in Poland in the 80s, and people were like, enough, just stop. This movie's never getting made. And I kind of eventually had to say, you might be right. I don't know that I can get this rock up the hill.
Well, even as you were saying it, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Trying to get excited about that one. I don't know.
And it's hard to let it go.
Not going there. Hey, would anybody here want to make a documentary? Or who is?
I'm making one.
Oh, Gabby, what's your doc about?
It's about an extraordinary young Ukrainian ballet dancer. His name is Sergei Polunin. And
What
so
makes
I've
him
been
different?
spending a year with him. So we were following his life as we go. But he's
Wow.
considered, I think he's probably one of the greatest dancers ever.
Wow. How come he didn't invite you to go to the Olympics?
He's going to be dancing at the Olympics, I think, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Would you go if
The
you were
opening
asked to
game.
go? Would you go to Sochi?
No.
Yeah. I know, we were talking about that. I was talking to a group of friends, and nobody would go. I would go. There's probably so much security, it's incredible, Who knows? I don't know. Anybody else here want to do a documentary? How'd I get onto that one? Did you guys, anyone see David O. Russell? I think that was like a David O. Russell moment just now, where my brain went into an entirely different place.
They saw David Russell.
Oh my gosh.
Came back.
That's right. Last night, Roger Durling did an interview with David O. Russell, and it was fascinating because Roger would ask a question and David would just spin off into David land, and you could just see the inner workings of how that brilliant brain worked. So mine was not anywhere near like that, but I don't know. Dee, did you guys ever do a doc or going to do a doc?
Yeah, we exec produced a movie called Big Men this year that Rachel Boynton made about oil in Nigeria, and Brad was involved with Eugene Jarecki's latest movie, The House I Live In, which is about the drug war and the incarceration levels in this country, which far exceed anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So it's something that we love, and we certainly watch a lot of them, but have to be, there's only so much bandwidth.
Right, it's true. So you have a book background. Are you still a voracious reader, and I'm not just talking scripts and work stuff, but do you also have do you just like to read for enjoyment? Do you ever, is there a Nicholas Sparks
Yes.
book on your, you don't read Nicholas Sparks, do you?
No, I don't read
Okay,
Nicholas
okay,
Sparks. I'm
just
sorry. There's just other stuff to read.
Well, do you, you love it still?
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Really. And yeah, you just got to grab it wherever you can.
You guys all read too, other than just scripts? It's amazing. I know I asked that because I think thank God it's not becoming a lost art. So like reading is back in now, I guess, with all the different devices, There's like 8 different books I have on my nightstand now. Sarah, what are you reading now? Do you have something that you particularly like?
I'm reading a book which isn't published yet, so I can't say too much about it. It's about mental instability, and it's really, really interesting. It's like a whole different section of case studies, and I'm really interested in this guy, and I think he could be a writer for something else, even though it's quite factual. So yeah, interesting.
I like that. Let's get the name of that one. What about Christine? What about you? Do you like to read for pleasure when you're not sleeping?
Love to read. And one of the great joys about no longer being a studio executive, where every weekend, like these 2 giant boxes of scripts would show up to read over the weekend. I don't know how we were expected to do all that reading, but Now I have, I work long hours, but I now have time to read for pleasure. I read Goldfinch, the Donna Tartt book
Yeah,
recently, and
it's
that was
really
great.
good.
Fantastic.
And now, yeah, I just picked up this new biography of Vladimir Putin, and it's really interesting because it's now, the early stages are about like glasnost, and I'm remembering remember like Gorbachev and Yeltsin, and
Right.
we're getting into the Putin years, so I'm finding that kind of interesting.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something strange about that one.
He's fascinating, that
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
Now, let's see. So did you have, Lauren, growing up, did you have a favorite cartoon? Was there a favorite television show? What was your go-to thing when nobody was around? You watched it over and over?
Well, I was young in the era of Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah,
and
what
it
was yours?
The best thing. Of course, it was all the Warner Brothers things. The animation alone is so wonderful. Like the in-betweening is great. It's, they rocket you along, and some of them are so inventive and funny, and
still relevant.
and Saturday morning had this great quality of like, all right, we're going to get up really early, and we're going to go downstairs, and we're going to turn the TV on, and hopefully Dad will sleep in for 6 hours. And then, we could just watch stuff I saw so many movies that way, like big blockbuster action ones, always set in like camps, like King Rat, and because we love these movies. We thought it was like real life, like James Garner and King Rat. He's cool,
That was like the early binge watch. You were an early binge watcher.
Yeah.
Gabby, have you ever binge watched Breaking Bad or any television show?
Actually, it's the only one that I have had time to watch, and somebody gave me the box set, and I watched the first series. But I don't have enough time to watch things, actually, really.
Yeah.
I'm a big reader. Books are but was so yeah. I'm as much great television there as I must say. I don't get a chance to really do that.
That's the hardest time. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
But Sarah, I would think, being that you have offices all around the world, you have probably managed time zones and time management. Do you have a particular time management tip?
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated.
I mean, you just make it work. I mean, making this movie, I was across 3 time zones. We were posting in Austin, we shot in Greece, I mean, it was, but you just have to, like, if it looks like it's an obstacle for you, other people are going to find obstacles in the way. So you have to just absolutely go for it. And yeah, definitely stay hydrated. That's it.
All right, I like that. Dee Dee, what about you? You've got probably, how many, would you say you get probably over 100 emails and 40,000 phone calls a day? How do you do that?
I don't count them.
No? Or do you just have a team that helps you do this?
No, you just go, you can't, you just get, hi, this is your minute, this is what's in front of you. That, you just got to move through it and try and stay unflappable. You know what I mean?
Stay calm.
Just stay calm. It's not,
Right.
you can't, nothing you do is going to change that, and it's all very lucky, and, keep your feet on the ground.
Yeah. Do you find, though, that sometimes when people are like, hey, I'm just calling to catch up, you're like, I just don't have time, right? Isn't that the worst?
No, I'm actually like, oh my God, that's so nice of you, thank you. I like those calls.
Do you?
Yeah.
Christine, do you like those calls?
Oh, I do.
You do?
I'm going to call you on Monday.
Please do. I'm like, it's
I
something
feel so bad.
exactly a distraction. And I'm going to guess, even though Dee Dee's not counting, that she probably gets about 100 emails every half hour. Is
I was
my
being
guess.
kind. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's just stay calm. My time management trick is I've always had a lot of energy, and so I never drank coffee, because if I did, I would just go through the roof. But at 49, my energy is starting to diminish a little bit, and I discovered coffee 2 years ago, and it's fantastic. It's amazing.
I like that. It is. It's a new thing.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
I'm going to Google that.
Yeah.
I'm going to Google and find out. That is. That's pretty good. What about you, Lauren? You got any special tip?
No, I'm failing badly at this era. I'm used to lots and lots of time alone, and I read very much as well. And I'm actually, this is so new to me, where you're not at your desk, you are going out, and there's people in theaters looking at you, So I'm not doing a particularly good job.
You get the hang of it, or you'd be like me. You just won't care after a while. It just is what it is. It's hard though. I did ask this of a friend of mine, and she said she had the 5 mile rule. And so she made sure that like her work was near her kids' school, which was near the kids' doctors, which was near and this is particularly for LA, just because she found that she was spending the majority of her time just going from A to B and getting frustrated, and that was a big time suck. So I always remembered that. I don't adopt it, but I like it. I would suggest it for others. Rachel, Gabby, anything before we open it up there for, no?
What were we
Special tip?
talking about?
Little time management?
Time management.
Any special tip?
Yeah, I think what Dee Dee said is, I try my best to be in that moment, kind of suffer from the guilt of the work, balancing work and motherhood. It's very difficult. Although when I get down, I think of what my son. We got into a car to go to one airport or another, and he said, "Mister," he was talking to the driver, and he said, "My mommy was animated for a producer's guilt award." I said, I am officially a cartoon character of guilt. That is exactly what I am. So it's hard. I mean, I listen to, these incredible, smart, and amazing women up here. I'm like, shit, I really need to read more.
Right? Do I need to read more? I need to sleep more? There's a lot. Yeah, that's right. Hey, Sarah, you worked with Sandra Bullock early on. I just
Yes.
thought of this. Did
Yes.
you had a chance to see Gravity?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic.
Did you like email her and you're like,
Oh yeah, no, totally. It was interesting because when Before Midnight was in the running, we were looking at people hosting screenings for us, and I was like, well, Gravity, character-driven film. Before Midnight, character-driven film. One in space, one in Greece. Perfect. And actually, very, very sweetly, she couldn't unfortunately do it in the end, but we did. I asked her, and it was because they're such different films.
Yeah.
They were actually really actually it's a good idea because they're so
It's
different.
kinda good.
Yeah,
They're not competitive.
Yeah, she's great. She's fab. I love her. She's
Aw.
great.
I'm glad. Yeah, I would just think that those relationships, whether it's Hugh Grant or Sandra Bullock or who everybody worked with along the way, that's the one thing.
They're invaluable. They're invaluable. I mean, just going back to what you were saying before about talking to people, those guys are my war council. That's who I call if I'm if I need help. I mean, in particular Hugh, but literally, those guys are so fantastic and have been in the business a long time and just know so much and have perspective, which is vital.
Yeah, that's right.
fantastic.
And also the people that aren't going to just agree with you. We have to have people close to us that are going to be like, are you nuts?
Totally.
Rachel, that idea about that Polish guy. Although, you know what? That might come around, and I got a feeling, you know what? We're all laughing, but hey, we'll see that in 5 years.
Or 20.
Or 20, that's right. Exactly. Well, speaking of Hugh, though, Sarah, just how proud were you of him when he took on those tabloids? That was...
It's incredible. I mean, he really felt passionate about it, and it was just, he became the voice of the victim. He set up a charity. It's called Hacked Off, and it's incredible. He really was able to, not people like him, but actually people that had been in the spotlight and hacked, just normal people. Someone that was a victim of the 7/7 bombing in London. People's voicemails were deleted of a murdered child. I mean, really horrific stuff. But yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
I was so proud. He's fantastic.
That's all. It would not have happened without him doing that, so it's good. So Dee, let's just do a quick what's up next for everybody. And Dee, I think you got The Normal Heart coming up.
Yes, we've locked half of The Normal Heart, which is going to be premiering on HBO Memorial Day weekend.
Wow.
And we're in post on a movie called True Story.
Tell everybody about The Normal Heart if they don't know, because personally I think fascinating.
It's based on
So
Larry
they're-
Kramer's play, which came out in the mid-'80s, and it's about the first 4 years in New York City when AIDS first hit the world and the formation of the GMHC. It's really been an amazing process to go through because you know it intellectually and then you sort of actually go and relive it as you make it. And I got something out of the making of it that I didn't really get in the script part of it, which was, oh right, this is actually what protest looks like. It's not popular, it's not glamorous, it is not simple, it is lonely. And I love the idea that maybe that will be one of the things that people take away from it.
Right. And that you have to actually physically protest.
Yeah.
You know, and the reason I say that is because some people think, oh, I'll be online.
this
I'll sign
petition.
this petition, or I'll do
Yeah.
something online, but it was that activism that really changed things. I lived through it, so I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. What about you, Christine? You're doing the follow-up?
Yeah, doing the follow-up to Croods and doing another original animated film also for DreamWorks Animation about a little girl and a Yeti who travel across China. And
Oh.
I'm really fond of it because she is a girl who doesn't speak a lot. She's had a very difficult childhood and she doesn't articulate very much. And the Yeti is nonverbal. And so I love the challenge of trying to make a movie without a lot of dialogue.
Right. Well, that's great, and I'm sure that a lot of people will resonate with that.
Yeah.
That's great. Lauren?
My boyfriend and I are going to Baja.
Wow. That's good.
Good project.
That's a
Be
good
there for
project. I like that.
15.
Gabby, what you got? Oh,
A feature film that will go ahead this summer in the UK, and then just working on developing different things with Steve Coogan and something with Ray Fiennes, who I made another film with this year called The Invisible Woman,
Right.
which you should all go and see.
and your documentary.
Yeah, well, the documentaries, yeah.
And a documentary. Rachel,
I've
you got a lot, right? Got a lot in development.
Yeah, we do a couple of things, you know, some things with my husband Terry, which is very, very exciting, a couple of things that are based on books, one that he'll write, one that, you know, we'll have someone else write, a film that I'll shoot this summer. I think I've been working on that one over 10 years, so that's exciting. We'll get to shoot in LA, which will be nice. And then, yeah, I guess just development and hoping to do another film in the fall as well. So.
And last but not least, Sarah?
Well, Fallow House were busy. We had 3 films at Sundance, Listen Up, Philip, with Alex Ross Perry, with EPs on Love is Strange, which is the Ira Sachs movie, and we also had Only Lovers Left Alive, which are also EPs on, with Jim Jarmusch. It's amazing.
What's that one about?
It's about love across time.
Oh.
It's really, really fantastic. It's Tilda Swinton. It's coming out here in May. Sony Picture Classics have it. It's fantastic. And then we're very excited. We're also premiering in Berlin a film called Stratos, which is a foreign language film, but we're just all so excited about it. So yeah, it's like children.
What country where's it from?
It's shot in Greece.
Oh, in Greece.
Yeah.
All right. Makes sense.
There's a theme. And
Love
yeah,
and Greece.
as well as Greek fiance. I'm living that.
Do you have a Greek fiance?
I do, yeah.
Wow.
He's Cypriot, yeah.
You met him shooting?
No, I did not. I actually met him in London, but yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, and as well as a bunch of stuff in development, so it's busy. It's good.
That's great. Well, you know what? I never thought in a million years I would go through my overachiever stack of cards, but I have. And I want to just before we close, it's incredible. You guys have covered so many topics and been so forthright and honest and inspirational. So I very much appreciate that.